Facebook Ohio Investors Group page. We are live here again. It's just Frank and I today, and we're gonna talk about a little bit of what's going on in the industry and what we're hearing as our most common objection. Um, our
Where's everybody else? They on vacation?
They're not on vacation. We're trying to get them to go out there and drum up some business, and we're doing some all-day training tomorrow. So we wanted to free up their time
Okay.
today so they can generate some new business and help our investors. So the topic that you were talking about today, go ahead and get started, and we'll just go from there.
And this has to do with investors, but it has to do with just the regular Joe. I mean, I get, as a realtor, anytime you go to any get together, any party, or see somebody, they're always like, what's going on with the market? What's going on? They're reading all this news. And to be honest, I'm telling people, we have an opportunity market. It's an opportunity market. And I'm talking to these people that aren't necessarily investors, and I'm saying, hey, listen, why don't we do an equity review on your property? Let's see what kind of cash you have to work with there. And then if you've got some money to work with there, why don't we put you on a God property search? Now, a God property search is a little different. It's not your everyday search that we send to all our investors. It's just we come across periodically these properties that are just amazing cash flow.
Why do
They're,
you
they're the
call them
kind of
God properties?
because they're the kind of property that you'd look at it and you'd be darn stupid not to buy it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, and now these people aren't looking necessarily to become hardcore investors or master investors. So I say, hey, listen, why don't we find you a God property, one that's just a no-brainer to buy, and we'll set you up with a property manager, because the idea isn't to make you a master investor, it's to keep the hassle away from you and just help you grow your long-term investments, set up for retirement through these small investments, buying a few here or there. And periodically, and sometimes I'm coming across properties and I'm shooting them out to our investors and nobody raises their hand. And hey, some of the people who I sold a house to a couple of years ago aren't ready to buy another house, but they are willing to buy a God property.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing when I'm calling investors and people I've been talking to for a couple of years about investing in properties, what they're saying is, I want to hold off till spring when the interest rates come down. You've been in this industry since like 1987, back when dirt was new.
Right.
What when you see interest rates at 2.5% or 3% or even 3.5%, how often in your career since 1987 have you seen interest rates below 3.5%?
You know what? Until they dipped below 6, I never saw. I mean, I started at 12, and we were always hovering between
12.
6 and 8. 12.
12. I mean, that's insane to think of 12%. So when we talk about 7% today, you still look at that as a bargain. When
Oh
interest
yeah.
rates were at 3.5%, or even let's call it 2.875, because there are plenty of
There
people
was a
out there.
refinance boom when rates hit 10%.
I bet. So
So
when interest rates were at 2.875, 3%, here's what makes me laugh the hardest. Everybody told you what rate they got. Everybody. I got a 2.875% interest rate. The number that they fail to tell you is they don't tell you how much over asking they paid for that house, because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to say I paid $40,000 over. Yeah, you got it at 2.875%, but you paid $40,000 more than asking. And that's the type of market we just exited last year. Everybody wanted to talk about their interest rate, but nobody wanted to talk about the price that they were paying for the home, because it was over and above what the list price was.
right, and you just take. And the bottom line is, you take today's rates. If it's cash flowing and making sense, buy it.
That's it.
Okay?
Right. The interest
You know,
rates don't matter. I
and
mean,
if rates drop next spring or the following spring, refinance.
that's it. Here's how some people that are newer to the industry are looking at this, and they're saying, all right, if the house last year was $200,000 and I could get it at 3.5%, then my payment was $898. But here's the kicker: is they're comparing that $898 at 200,000 to what we're at in this environment. back when interest rates were at 3.5%, you couldn't buy that house for $200,000. It didn't matter if it
Right.
was listed for 200,
Well,
you were
and that's
paying.
why I call it an opportunity market. You're not competing against 30 other people to
That's
buy
it.
that property anymore.
That's it. You're able to put in low ball. Remember the days when we called them low ball offers, but they were under asking price? For a
Right.
while there, you wouldn't even consider doing that because interest rates were low, money was cheap, and people could get more than what they were asking. Now we're into a transitioning market, and we got to use some tools to try to help our buyers, our investors, to step out of what they were used to back then 1 year ago and make better decisions. And one of those things, I wrote down a list here: price drops. It's super simple within our search systems to send out lists of price drops to our investors and say,
Right.
look, this has been reduced. It may be on the market for 3 days and be price dropped. It might be on the market for 90 days and be price dropped. Regardless, they should be actively searching those price drops. Another one is going to be days on market. Back 2021, days on market, our average days on market was like 5. And 4
Yeah.
of those days were just getting the paperwork ready for the contract you wrote on day 1. Now we're going to see a transition from 5 days on the market to 30, 60, 90 days on the market. And the longer a property's been on the market, the more opportunity you have to negotiate with that deal as well. So we're gonna look first at price drop.
And when you say negotiate, it's not just price. There was a time where you couldn't ask the seller to do anything.
Okay, so give me some of that. Those are some tools. We're talking about tools today that you can use that maybe it's not the interest rate you're getting, but you could use these tools to get a better deal. Give me some.
Well, just standard examples: having the seller pay your closing costs. Or I just did one where I did a 210 buy down to give my clients lower start payment.
Okay, so how does having the seller pay your closing costs help an investor?
Well, they have more. First off, their cash on cash improves because
Goes
they're putting
up?
less money into it.
Absolutely.
They have more money left in their pocket for other investments, for anything with the property.
Okay.
So I mean that's just one. Another thing is, so you go in, back 6 months to a year ago, you did a home inspection. If you did a home inspection,
Yep.
because the way it was so competitive, but you did a home inspection, there were repairs. It was like, hey, hurry up and either say you're buying the property or the next guy who's got the backup offer on this property is going to take it. Now the seller's willing to work with you. Okay, I'll take care of that. Like I'm doing one right now. They're going to replace they're going to put in 4 brand new windows in the house as part of the negotiation. And we haven't even done our home inspection yet. That was on our offer.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
so where you don't have room to brag about your interest rate necessarily, you've got room to negotiate, to come to the table and get some of this
Right.
stuff talked down. So you can roll in seller closing costs. I heard you also mention a 2-1 buy down. I know what that is, but the people watching this may not. What is a 2-1 buy down?
Basically, all a 2-1 buy down is somebody, whether it's you, the buyer, the real estate agent, you, the buyer, the mortgage company, or the seller, puts money aside to cover your payment so that, and I'll just do real easy numbers. 6%, let's say the payment is $600. I'm making this up.
Okay.
And we go down 2%. So your first year payment is based at 4%. Now you're not paying 4%. You're still paying 6%, but the difference, let's say 4% is $400. The difference is every $200 every month comes from that pool of money that was set aside by the seller or by the lender. And it gives you a lower monthly payment for the first year. And the second year goes to 5%. So you're still getting a lower monthly payment the second year. And then third year, it goes back to the normal fixed rate. So you're not on an adjustable. It's a fixed rate mortgage, but it gives you 2 years of a break on what the monthly payment would be, which means you could be cash flowing now. And then when the time comes right to refinance, then you refinance. So if we take a property, take a property that at today's rate, let's just say you're cash flowing. It's not huge, but you're cash flowing. All right. We do a 2-1 buy down. So now day one, you're cash flowing pretty decently. All right, because we've got that lower monthly payment. So come year 3, when it goes up to its full payment, if the rates aren't there to refinance, Worst case scenario, rates aren't there to refinance. You're still at least cash flowing, but yet your rents have gone up every year. So you're still cash flowing pretty decently. And if the rates have improved sometime during that time, you could have refinanced and be into just a lower fixed rate mortgage. So it's a win for a buyer.
To simplify things to people that may have not have heard of this, because it wasn't available in these last few, it was available, it just wasn't heard of to ask for something like this. All you're doing is you're asking the seller to prepay your interest for 2 years so that you're able to get a better cash flow and a lower payment. So instead of paying closing costs, or maybe in addition to paying closing costs, they're buying down that rate for you by simply giving you a credit at the closing versus taking a lower price. And it's going to help you much more in your cash flow than it would be if you were to lower the price by $2,000 or $3,000.
And lenders are willing to do it because, mortgage originations are down. They want the business. So they're willing to do it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So right now we've got seller paid closing costs. We've got seller paid buy downs. We've got using our days on market as a way to negotiate. We're looking at also the understanding basically how would I say it, your list price versus your sold price. That's another big one that we haven't really looked at in the past because we haven't had to, because if your list price 200 and it's selling for 230, it really doesn't matter except to try to figure out how much over asking you got to throw out there. But as the market shifts and you're able to negotiate, you could look at that list price versus sold price and be able to say, hey, the average under list price offer being accepted is 10%. Well, now you know where you're trying to end up in your negotiation strategy using logic. It's not just, I'm just trying to beat you up and lowball you. I can go to that other agent and say, hey, look, here's the numbers. Here are the statistics of what's happening in this market. And we're seeing offers being accepted 10% below asking price. And now they have a way of going to their seller and saying, this is why. It's not just because they're trying to beat you up. It's because this is what the market is truly holding.
Right.
And it's important that you have good real estate agents, people that have been in the business for a while and have experienced this type of market before. So
it's important that you have good real estate agents that can talk to that listing agent of that house you're trying to buy, because a lot of those guys don't understand any of the stuff we just went through.
No, not at all.
Somebody explaining it.
Yep, I find myself all the time educating the other agent if they've only been in the market. I shouldn't even say that. If they've only been in the industry a little while, they could be in the industry for 10 years and still not have experienced this stuff the way that you and I have and not be able to look at that. So having a good agent, that's definitely a tool that has to be out there. Looking for possible rent increases, using the Bigger Pockets calculators or a rent.com or something like that to say, all right, this property, it's showing rents at $650, but when I search here, I'm seeing this same number of bedrooms and bathrooms renting for $950. Well, that's a deal that's just sitting out there to be had because maybe the landlord became friends with their tenants or something, and they just didn't have the heart to raise the rents. But now the new person coming in buying the property, they're looking at it from a business perspective and raising the rents to what the market dictates. So that's a huge one that we could.
I will say that I'm tooting our own horn, but you, me, and the rest of the guys on our team, because we've trained them, we do one of the best analysis of a rental property than anybody out there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time.
We're always looking out for our client's best interest.
Yeah, I unfortunately, there's a lot of realtors out there that'll just throw you into anything. We talk so many of our clients out of certain investments because they're not in the right area, or we know details about contractors in the area and how long it'll take to get somebody set up to actually repair that house and look at the vacancy factors. And sometimes it just doesn't work. So we're trying to help people, just like it was our own money that we're putting into these properties, and it makes a big difference. So let's just do a quick recap. I think what we established on this phone call is high rates. Who cares? If the rates are high, that's okay. It's people have become wealthy in down markets before. Actually,
more become wealthy in down markets.
That's it. The buy low, sell high theory is fun to say, but so few people actually do it, whether buying stocks or buying real estate. When things get scary, most people head for the doors. It's the ones that double down that usually make the most money. So the tools that we're going to use is to understand the history of the markets in the area, and we can do that right in all the programs that we have. We want to look for price drops and have a systematic way of sending that out to investors. Days on market is another one. We want to look now and try to figure out how long has this property been on the market, so I can look at what point am I able to get that offer that I really need it to be at for this deal to make sense. Because buying a property at $200,000 last year, you might have to get it for 170 at today's interest rates for it to make sense. So the longer it's on the market, the more pressure's there, and the sellers are willing to negotiate. Having a good agent, that's just a no-brainer. And then we're going to look at the list price versus sold price. If you can look at the list price versus sold price over a certain window of time, you can really identify what is the opportunity for getting a lower offer accepted.
And we actually have searches set up like that. So
yeah. All right. So I think what we did was we established, even though interest rates may be high, waiting isn't always the best opportunity here. You might be able to get a property for a much lower price, or use some strategic seller financing or seller buy downs to get just as a good a deal as what you were getting back then. The big difference here is we're not going to be talking about interest rates. We're not going to be bragging about our interest rates. We're going to be bragging about how much lower than asking we picked up that property for. Because what people weren't bragging about back in 2021 was, I paid $30,000 over asking. They were bragging about their interest rate just because it was low. Everybody was getting that same interest rate. It really wasn't anything to brag about.
And I'm actually a little bit different thought process is you're never going to pick up that property at the wrong price. No investment's a bad investment as long as you hang on to it. As long as you hang on to it long enough, it's going to be a good sale. You're going to make profit. In the meantime, you just make sure that property is being profitable for you while you own it.
That's it. All
right.
right.
I don't care what rates are. I don't care what prices are.
Yeah, it just got to make sense when you run the numbers on the spreadsheets and go through everything. Regardless if it's 12% or it's 3%, there's still ways to make money through buying real estate, and that's the bottom line. And getting out of or waiting for interest rates to come back down to 3%, it's kind of an unrealistic expectation because you were in the business since 1987, and this is the first time you saw 3%. This is the first time you saw 4.5%.
You're right.
So if I'm in the market right now saying I'm going to wait till spring for interest rates to come back down, what if they go up between now and then?
Right.
And let's say they do come back down. But what if they come back down to 6.5%, which is essentially what we're at today? You're going to wait 6 months for prices to change and stuff and interest rates just to come back to where they are right now. Because going back to 2.5%, 3%, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see that happening real soon.
No, good stuff.